G'day, g'day. This is the Heroes Podcast, and I have someone here today who is my guest, Steve Sandor. How are you?
Yeah, you're not kívánok. So for the Hungarians, they'll understand that. Maybe for the rest of you, I'm really well, thanks, and good afternoon to you, Andre.
Thanks very much. So, Steve is creator of the Scale to Success solution, uh, and he says every business deserves the knowledge, skills, and experience to be exceptional, and that's what he stands for. Very excited to have you on this show. Uh, we could start with maybe your story, Steve. If you wanna tell us, how did you get here? I know you've got quite a story to tell, but pick a few. Tell us.
Yeah, probably the one that it defined me very early on in my business career was I was recruited by American International Group for the national sales manager's role, and it was the job of a lifetime. You know, when I was 32 years of age, and I got the call from a headhunter. They said, they're looking for somebody. I'd built up a really good reputation at the company that I'm working for, which was Citibank, and they said they've got this role. Am I interested? I actually wasn't. I was very happy with where I was, but the job just sounded really interesting. So went to the interview with the headhunter, got the first interview, got the second interview, got the job. And Andra, the job was to die for, right? It was a salary today that would make your eyes water. The corner office, the big car, business class flights, everything, the expenses, everything that you would want in a job. I was a little bit, I was wondering why they actually recruited me, because I'd never actually done this type of work before, right? Where I'd had 30 staff. I'd had an EA and 2 sales reps, but apparently, my reputation and what I was saying, um, you know, sold me into the organization. After about 3 months, I figured out I had no idea what I was doing. They wanted a change manager, right? They wanted somebody to come in here and refresh the organization with a whole different way of doing it. I had 5 state managers who were all in their mid 50s, working in an industry that was fairly crusty, and had been set in its ways. And after about 6 months, they figured out that I had no idea what I was doing. And after about 12 months, I got the sack, right? And I reckon they should have sacked me 6 months earlier, right? I was doing a really bad job. But what I was doing was I was really pissing off people, because my boss had said, get in there and, bash heads, be as aggressive as you like. And because I'd never done that before, I literally took that, and I was this cocky, with a lot of hubris, couldn't do anything wrong, 30 something, right? So that was a kick in the teeth when I got the sack. And what you do is you make the spin, right? So then I was telling all my friends, it's not my fault, they're
Of
pack of
course.
assholes, whatever it is, right? But what really bothered me was the fact that very few people came up to me and wished me well.
Mm.
It was, don't let the door hit you on the ass as you're leaving. And that really bothered me, because that's not who I was, right? That's not how I built my reputation um, within the financial services industry. So my wife and I, we were expecting our first child. We had the opportunity to go and live in Hungary for 8 months. So we went there and did a lot of reading. I read Napoleon, not Napoleon Hill, Napoleon, the history of the
Yeah.
French leader. And I also read a lot of the classic management books, How to Win Friends and Influence People, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Ken Blanchard, 1 Minute Manager Met the Monkey, and all of those, right?
Mm.
So because I really didn't want to. I knew something was wrong with my style, and I couldn't figure out what it was. So I actually went and learned, came back, got a job, made a decision that I would never behave that way. And that's, I built a career around, I guess, compassion and listening and making sure that people were cared for. I'm probably the most difficult boss to have because I do expect a lot of people, but I'm very, very supportive of them. I'm that benevolent dictator who will enable them to do the job that they've been enabled, or employed to do, and I will care for them as like a parent would. So fast forward some 30 years, I ended up 10 years in Papua New Guinea, as you know. And my last two assignments in Papua New Guinea was where I had, in the first job, I had 30 staff, and the second one, I had 120 staff. And in both situations, we turned the business around. They were doing very, very poorly when I came on board as their manager. And within a relatively short period of time, 6-8 months, we turned the business around, not through my efforts, but through me enabling my people to do the job that they were employed to do and enable them to shine as best they could with the skills and capabilities that they had. And when I left both those jobs, there were tears, tears
Good
of
sign.
joy, on both sides. I was crying because I was so proud of what they'd done, and they were so proud of what they had done. So yeah, and then I came back in 2019 and started Inspiring Business.
Wow. And why did you leave those jobs? Just makes me wonder.
Yeah, good question. The first job was I was working for a large security company, and they were going through an exercise of getting rid of all of their expat staff globally. So the
Oh.
writing was on the wall. I had a very good relationship with the managing director, and we were talking about what the consequences were for both of us. And he said, "Look, if an opportunity comes up, I'm not going to stand in your way." So a friend of mine, so that was after about 18 months, very successfully. But what happened was an opportunity came up to work for a construction company in Lae. I was based in Port Moresby, and they were a basket case. So I went up there and spent 10 months up there, and within a relatively short period of time, we put systems and processes in place that they'd never had. And we enabled the, I had 120 staff, and we'd enabled all the supervisors to be able to take control of their area, and they'd never done that before. They'd never actually been given the opportunity to do that, so there was a huge learning curve for them, right? But the whole idea is that you will make mistakes. There's no question about that. And when you do make those mistakes, what I'll do is I'll make sure that we learn from those mistakes, and I'll be your shield, if you like, from the hierarchy. And we turned the business around. It was unprofitable, and within 10 months we were profitable. And it was it was my staff that did that. Why I left that organization is really important lesson for the listeners who are in that situation where they're in a toxic situation. And I was working with I was the chairman of the organization, had called me in a number of times into meetings where he was being critical of the way that we were operating, because I wasn't operating the way he operated, which was very much a colonial style. He'd been there 30 plus years. There was a way that he managed, regardless of the color of your skin. He just managed that way. It wasn't the way that I got the best out of my staff, and so I refused to kowtow to his demands. And philosophically, we just had a different. And I kept saying to him, "I don't understand why you want me to change my management style when we're the only profitable division that you have." But because I wouldn't succumb to his demands,
Hmm.
I basically got the sack from the company, and I was very happy to do that because I stood my ground. Right? I'm not going to change the style of management. I would rather fall on my sword than actually turn around and start being being uh, a typical aggressive manager
Hmm.
to um, to bully people into doing work, and I just refused to do that. So that's why I came back.
Wow, that's interesting. So, what happened next? Inspiring, you said.
Yeah, it actually my first when I came back, the business that I called myself was Business Sport Life,
Hmm.
because I'd always felt that there was a connection between the way that businesses are run, the way sports run, and the way life is, the way life works its way through, right? So there's a lot of similarities in that. And then I showed my business card to someone, and they said, "Oh, so you're a sports coach?" I went, "Whoops, positioning is everything, right?" So I said no. So I actually then repositioned it to inspiring business. There wasn't a lot of thought around that. It was, what do I do? What do I hope to do? I hope to inspire people to be better at the what they do.
Hmm.
And then the bigger challenge was actually, what market do I work in? Because in PNG, I had worked in the corporate space. I had a very good reputation as a human resource consultant, or a leadership, someone in the leadership space, amongst the large corporate entities. And my success was partly due to the company that I was working with. They had been there for some 30 years. They had a position. So my business card, even though my name was on the business card, the company was the one that opened up the door. I just happened to be, very good at what I did once the door was opened. In Australia, that was, I hadn't been here for 10 years. I was in a different industry completely. I started my consulting career in Australia 2 years ago in 2020. So
Hmm.
prior to that, I'd been in financial services. And so I really wanted to figure out what it was that was my genius. And there are two parts. So working with teams, small 15, 20 person teams, and being a mentor to those teams and helping them to build the systems and processes and the culture that wraps itself around those systems and processes, to ensure that the business actually delivers what it's meant to deliver. So there's a lot of strategy involved. There's a lot of business planning involved. There's a lot of process involved. So it's effectively a general manager type role.
Hmm.
That's what you would expect a general manager to do. And I work with smaller businesses who don't are not big enough for a general manager quite yet, or they don't have the technical expertise within the organization to be able to have the structure to have a general manager. So what I do is I toil the soil of the business and get it prepared so that either the managing director can fill that role if they choose to, but more likely what they're going to do is to promote somebody from within into that senior management role, or recruit somebody from outside to be able to take my job on a more permanent basis. So I work with businesses for somewhere between 6 and 12 months, and depending on the difficulty, or the what it is that they're trying to achieve, will depend on how much time and how long I spend there.
And what's the general, like, you could spend a whole day there every week, or would you stay 2, 3 days a week? Is it all up to the arrangement itself?
Yeah, initially the scale to success solution is basically somewhere between 3 and 4 days of my time over a couple of weeks. Typically conversation with the business owner to find out what it is that their objective, what are they trying to achieve? What's made the business successful? Because a lot of consultants and coaches, what they do is they come in and they say, you're broken and I'm here to fix you. When in fact, when you say it like that, you go, how arrogant is that? That, you are the Messiah that is here to solve all of your problems. When in fact, the business is not broken. The business just needs some finessing, maybe it's just some really simple things that they haven't had the time or capacity to yet put into place.
Yeah.
And I'm just there to accelerate that. I then create, so that's the Scale to Success solution. Part of that is a deep dive analysis where I have a lot of conversations with the staff, where I look at their systems, processes, what they don't have, what templates do they have in place around their people. So do they have job descriptions? Do they have an organizational chart? Things that small businesses tend to gloss over, but they are essential to the success of a business, or to the scaling of a business. Right. So if you want to get more time out of the business, if you want to get more profit out of the business, or you want to grow the business, then you need these foundational components in place. And so that's that. I spend that time. I then present a report to the business owner, which basically reflects back to them what the business is, what I've observed, a strategic plan based on where they want to get to, and over what period of time. And it depends on the capacity that they have to be able to put their own people into the project and how much money they have to invest in the business. Because there is, this does require an investment of time and money to be able to put in place that foundation. It's not going to happen. You could do it on a DIY basis, right? So here's the information, and you could do it. And that is possible. And I do have tools that people can use that I make freely available to them. But if you want to accelerate it in a shorter period of time, then it would be like if you were to employ a general manager. I would do that. Typically, I do that sort of for the first 3 months, 1 day a week, where I'm on site. So I don't do this remotely. And we might do a leadership section. We might do writing standard operating procedures. We might do a business plan. We might do a strategic plan. Just depends on how that to what extent that organization has developed all of those parts.
Wow. So where could they have you as the strategist, the business improvement specialist? Like, are you covering Australia, or would you fly overseas? Like, how far is your reach? Where are you based?
Yeah, based in Brisbane at the moment. So for the moment, it's Australia bound. Considering going overseas to North America, working with a couple of people over there to, ideas around what we might be able to do to expand the concept. That's very embryonic conversations at this stage. My issue is my own capacity. So when you hire Inspiring Business, you're not hiring Inspiring Business, junior. You get Steve Sandor, and that's, that comes, what you buy is the wisdom and knowledge and experience of some 40 plus years in business, but my job is to build internal capacity within the organization so that I'm not there on a full-time. So if I'm still there, 12, 18 months, doing the one thing, I haven't succeeded.
Probably, yes. So tell me, what is the next jump, the next stage of where are you going? Like, what are you looking at as 5 years from now? If you really build yourself
Yeah.
and your impact?
I, I guess well, part of it, you and I are involved in the 6 Star business. So that's about having impact on businesses. For inspiring business, I don't have aspirations to be, overtake the world and be global leader in anything. I would like to think that the wisdom that I have, that I've been able to impart that wisdom through a number of vehicles. Writing a book at the moment. I've got my own podcast where I do something similar to what you're doing now. I'm building masterclass. So basically trying to leave a legacy behind where people can actually look at, they don't have to be they don't have to be a Peter Drucker. They don't have to be a Simon Sinek, right? They can be a Steve Sandor, right? Which is, there's a lot of wisdom in people, particularly younger people now, because we are living in a completely different digital age. So what the impact that I'd like to have is on those people, to encourage them to become better people in management, right? Which means that they become better leaders. And when you're a better leader, you make more money for you and the organization that you work for. And it feels counterintuitive because the 80s were very much greed is good, get the most out of people.
Yeah.
And we are now facing the consequences of that behavior. And I think now larger organizations are starting to see it around psychological safety. You can't treat people the way that you had liked to treat them, or what was norm, what was the traditional, work 80 hours a week to work your way up the food chain. The business would suck the blood out of you, all of those sorts of things. That we don't need that. We can operate smarter than that and be far more effective. So long answer to a very short question, but that, to make an impact on people, however I possibly can.
And how is the masterclass? Did you say you're building a masterclass now? Yeah.
Yeah, so I've actually just recorded 6 episodes of the podcast. Got 2 episodes to go. That's the basically the process that I take my clients through.
So it's breaking down into tiny little steps, huh?
Yeah. So looking for business owners who have a particular problem that they're trying to solve, and then getting them to come to the masterclass with that problem. We then give them some content around how you might be able to solve not just that problem, but the content around business, and then enabling them to develop a strategy to solve that problem in a cohort, a number of people. So there might be 12 or 15 people, business owners, who are all sort of trying to solve a problem, not the same problem. And then the masterclass then provides them, over a period of 8 weeks, gives them the opportunity to be mentored and coached, not just by me, but by subject matter experts in different areas. And then they come back together at the end and present, so that we close off a number of loops that we have in some of the content that we've delivered over that 8-week period. And then what they do is they then work on finalizing their business plan or their strategy of solving the problem, and then they pitch it to the group.
Nice.
And then that group then becomes their critics. They also become their advocates. They also potentially could become a buyer of that solution or a seller to that solution. And then that cohort then continues, because over that period of time, you would have built up a fair amount of trust with each other, because you would have been sharing some inner sanctum secrets. And so then that cohort can then roll on and continue to support each other. And, we'll do another cohort, and then maybe that's the global, with the overtaking the global world, and do an Anthony Robbins section with all the Scale to Success solution graduates.
Love it. So who do you need to be connected to or connected with to create that impact that could really show new results for a lot of business owners who are maybe struggling and they don't know they are struggling or why?
Yeah. The client, the ideal client, they are business owners who are feeling frustrated.
Mm.
So they're angry or frustrated, and it's not fear, it's anger. Because anger, frustration manifests itself in anger. And that's not their normal behavior. And so they're frustrated with the business. Now, the business may well be doing particularly well, and they just can't reconcile why is the business going really well and I feel like shit. Right? And it's typically because their staff are not empowered to do the job that they've been employed to do. And that's typically because the business owner has continually been told you need to let go of control, right, to be able to grow your business. And that is total BS. As a business owner, you actually need to be in control. You need to be less controlling. And there's a subtle difference. So to be able to do that, you need the systems and processes in place to be able to know what your business is doing. So that's the management information systems, the MIS. And then you need to be able to delegate to those people who've been employed to you and enable them to do the job that they've been doing. So that it's that those people are the ideal client for me, because they haven't yet figured out what it is, and I help them to understand what the problem is with their business. And it's typically how to let them get out of, step aside and let them grow. Let the business grow and not be the hub of the business, because when they're the hub of the business, they then, if they take themselves away from the hub of the business, the wheel falls apart. So make yourself a very important spoke in the wheel, but not the hub of the wheel. The hub is the business. So that's that. Managers who are in that situation where they're not really sure how to manage or lead, they probably have worked out how to manage but not lead. Those, and I'm working with people like that one-on-one, where I would spend 10 sessions with them, a couple of hours a week working with those. And again, we give them tools to help them work on whatever their business plan is. So that's more at a one-on-one basis, but it's again not coaching, it's more around consulting. It's about helping them to develop the tools that they need to be able to do the job that they do.
Amazing. I mean, what I hear from you, that if they go through your processes, probably the business will be sellable. Like, luckily, there may be a chance for this owner, manager, CEO to spend more time away. Is that right? That's
It's so basically, I, as the general manager in the number of organizations that I've worked for, I've made the owners millions of dollars.
Wow.
Because of what I've been able to do, or the knowledge that I have, and then being able to impart that on the team. And they've had very little to do with the business, and they've actually been able to manage at a strategic and global level, so that they can do what they really love to do. And typically a business owner who's successful, they're good at business development, relationship building, they're good at the technical skill whatever it is that they are, the discipline that they have. And they're typically pretty good at numbers or understanding what their numbers are. And so what we do is we harness that strength, and we give them that ability to focus on what they love to do, and then build the strengths of the people in the organization to fill in the gaps that they don't have. And so typically, entrepreneurs, especially the ones who are risk takers, they're always creating new ideas. Very rarely have I come across someone who's in that successful position that actually loves the detail, right? And so what happens is that they get sucked into the detail because they don't know how not to. And so it's, don't work on your strengths, not your weaknesses. Find people whose strengths are your weaknesses and partner with them. The best advice I ever got was hire people that are better than you. And the typically, business owners will hire people that they can control. And I'm going, no. You want to hire people that are really good at what they do, pay them really well for that, and then let them do what they do. But they need to be able to report back to you what it is that they're doing. So they don't get carte blanche, right? They just can't go off and do whatever they want to do. It's within a framework. But, why would you want to play halfback when you're a forward?
Yeah, that's just does not compute, eh? So you pretty much free them from the business.
If they want to, yeah. If they want to be free of the business and they just want to sit back and relax and travel around Australia in a caravan and just check in every once in a while, yep, that's I think probably more likely they want to be free, or they still love their business, right? So they've started the business because they want to make an impact. Very few people who are in business, the reason they want to sell their business is they're not having fun. It's not enjoyable anymore, right? Because they're doing all the things that they don't want to do. Yet the business, if they were to sell the business and invest the money that they got from the business, they would get nowhere near what they're pulling out in income from the business, right? So have the best of both worlds. Do the things that you love to do, delegate the things that you don't like to do, and continue to draw down the income that you had from your business. That's why I say, get your business ready for sale so you don't have to sell it. And that way you can retire into your business. And then at some point in time when you've absolutely had enough, right, then you go and sell it, and it's a turnkey operation. It's the E-Myth model. It's a turnkey operation. It's ready to go. It doesn't rely upon me. There's no caveat. I don't have to hang around for 2 years while I hand over it. It's ready to be sold. It's there, done, right? I'm important, but I'm not the value of the business. And it's worth more. It's worth far more when you're in that situation. So, and it usually, it's a 2-year process to get to that point.
It's powerful. It's a powerful offer.
So I think so. Yeah.
So where are they going to find you? Tell us the website. What's your phone number?
Yeah. www.inspiringbusiness.net. There's a contact us form on there. Obligation free 30-minute consultation that usually lasts an hour and a half because I just want to help. The phone number is on the website. It's 0421 998822. Email steve@inspiringbusiness.net. As I said, you get me. You don't get a bot. You don't get someone else who's here. I've got staff, but I do this.
Powerful. Until we find a way to clone you, right?
Until I find my way, yeah. And that's a work in progress too, right? So there are people who I am working with who have very much aligned values and principles, and they bring different skills and different knowledge to the table as well. So fortunately or unfortunately, there's only one Steve Sandor. But I think there are people who have got very similar values to being able to deliver information to business owners in an authentic and credible way, who have actually got lived experiences. So the people that the coaches and consultants that I tend to work with have come out of running businesses, as opposed to coming out of understanding how a model works and how you can apply the model. Because I believe that lived experiences, actually the pain of running a business, your own business, or as a manager in the business, I think that having that empathy of really understanding, that when you ask somebody to do something, that there is, that there are consequences for every decision that you make. And, I really want to, I'm passionate about it, obviously. And I also want to make sure that the advice that I'm giving my clients is the best advice that we can possibly get at that time. So sometimes I'm actually the brake in the partnership between the business owner. They want to move really, really quick and make decisions based because they're quick starts. And I'm going, yep, we can move quick, but let's not move hastily. Right? Let's make sure that we've got all of the information, or the majority of information, that we need to make a success of the decision that we make. We're not going to be successful all the time, but I know that my data shows that business owners get their decision making wrong around about 70% of the time.
Yeah.
But the 30%, when they get it right, boy, do they get it right. That they make the 70% pale into insignificance. And so my strategy is, I don't want to stop that, right? But if we got 4 decisions right instead of 3, that's a 30% improvement in the success rate. And that might just be spending another day collecting information and researching the data before we actually jump in and making a decision.
And also, some decisions are much more important than some. I found some business owners are focusing on tiny things rather than spending time on that could change the whole future, or even 10x their business.
Yeah, and they're really good at that. Right? They're really, really good at identifying opportunities. Their intuition is really strong, and so but they just don't have the time to invest in that, because they're so busy dealing with people coming and knocking on their door going, should we send this delivery today, or we've got this particular website that page that we want to get written. How should we write it? I often use this example. So you're a business owner, your turnover's 5 million. Right? You're a reasonably successful business. You've got maybe 15, 20 employees, good profit. If you were a division of a larger organization and I was your managing director and the business total was $100 million, so you're 5% of my total revenue. Right? So I'm having a performance management conversation with you, or, an end of year conversation about how you're performing. And if I'm having the conversation of, why are you spending time signing off on every expense? Why are you signing off on every page of the website? Why are you drafting emails to clients? Like, we would, why are you not doing the things that I've employed you to do, which is the strategy and, identifying the opportunities in the marketplace so that we can maximize those, building distribution relationships, going and seeing your top 10 clients, all of those things, right? We would have a really difficult conversation if you weren't doing those things and doing all of the other things. But a small business, the only people that they're accountable to are the bank manager and typically their partner, their life partner, about whether they're going. And so, yeah, I can be their conscience. I can also be their, their mentor in certain areas, their conscience in other areas.
Powerful. When you were telling me this, I was wondering if sort of putting these very different two hats on, small business owners should have a whole day to be the strategist and don't even get involved in the operations. And I know I'm talking about an impossibility normally, but if they were able to give one day to that kind of hat of where are we going, how are we going to achieve this, the high level strategy and leadership, probably they would be able to get so much more out of that small business that would grow rather than, as you said, survival mode.
Yeah, and you're right. It is impossible if they try and do it straight away and they go from one step, try and do it completely the other way, because the business is not yet at that point where their staff feel comfortable to do that. But it is possible over a relatively short period of time to set some boundaries around that. And it's around the language, the internal language that the organization uses. And, we, in the leadership programs, we talk about, the language of coaching, the language of managing, the language of leadership, and how the idea is to be able to be in a situation where you can have a really difficult conversation with your staff, and it's an adult to adult conversation, but because you've built up that relationship and trust between you, because you've continually enabled them to grow, that when those difficult conversations occur, they are done in a respectful way. And over a period of time, what you can do is you can then release the controlling effect, still being controlled, but release control, and then spend 70% of your time strategizing. When I was a general manager working for a large organization, I would spend 70% of my time writing business plans, excuse me, working on strategy, going and seeing my number one clients, my top 10 clients, working on sales projections, working on financial, analysis, all of the things that you would expect a general manager to do, because I had a sales manager, I had a finance director, I had a marketing, assistant marketing person, I had a human resource person, I had all of those resources available. I could allow them to do that work. And so a small business owner, you can build up those internal capacity and capabilities to enable you to do the things that you love to do.
Amazing. Well, we're surely running out of time. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with the audience here about yourself, or is there a gold nugget for someone who is keen to take their small business to the next level?
Yeah, it sort of relates that. Thank you. It sort of relates to the conversation that we're currently having now around psychological safety, around how people, when they come to work, they feel as though they want to be in a situation where they have they enjoy what they're doing, and they feel safe. They don't feel bullied. And the human resource industry speaks to this a lot. I've got and there's a lot of neuroscience behind it. Now they're talking about social safety, not just psychological safety. I've got a really, really simple solution that I think, if an organization was to adopt it, would do away with around about 60% of the problems that they have in this particular space. And we all know that, one of the things that we're meant to do is mentor the people who are working for us. What if we, as a KPI, as a performance management measure, as a manager, you were required to train 2 people that reported to you to replace you in your job?
Very powerful.
Now, the reason it's powerful is because, one, it builds internal capability within the organization. Now you have 3 people who are able to do a job. They may not necessarily have the accountability and the decision making, but they can actually perform the role. And so when someone goes away on leave or they leave the organization, there isn't a whole now, and a lot of, that's the typical approach. That's why you do it. The more powerful is that if the organization rewards you for doing that, it's a part of the culture of the organization, because you know that even though you've trained those people and you've taught them to do your job, you know that the organization is going to be there to support you in the next part of your career.
Yes.
So they're going to support you to be able to do what it is that you are good at doing, right? And your success. And the smart organizations start thinking about that 2 years out and start creating roles within the organization that will be using the strengths of the individual. Now, it's always, you've got to be careful about building businesses around the strengths of individuals, because if that individual leaves, but you can build a position around a particular strength that you can then bring into that role, and multiple people can come into that sort of structure, if you like. So yeah, I think it's something that is, if we were all to, if every organization had that approach, that how simple and easy would it be for the business to be psychologically safe
and thrive with probably all of the risks that could be happening. Someone leaving, all of those things are prepared.
and the key to it is that people then leave their egos in the back door, right?
Yeah.
There's no room for ego in this, because you're going to be rewarded for being good at the things that you do, which is sharing your knowledge.
Very powerful. And I need to ask one extra question. You were telling about leaving the egos behind for those who are hopefully there to take coaching, mentoring from you. How do you deal with situations where you are confronted with adamant, hard-headed leaders who are not in the growth mindset or not coachable? What do you do?
I can only be vulnerable in front of them and demonstrate that vulnerability is not a weakness. It's actually a strength. So that when you can bare your soul, and you experience your mistakes, when you share those with people, then you're human. And it's amazing, just try this. You don't need to, bare your inner secrets. But if you were to be honest with somebody about the mistakes that you've made today, and you fessed up to that, and rather than trying to hide it and to cover it up, and you actually just admitted, look, I've made this particular mistake, and maybe I need some help around resolving that. Okay, that is so powerful. It's really is. It's something that I learned very late in. I mean, I obviously learned it when I came back from, after as a 32-year-old. But I reckon Papua New Guinea taught me humility the most, because there's no point in having an ego over there. There is absolutely no point. It doesn't serve you at all, right? In fact, it diminishes the impact that you have, because all of a sudden you are superior, right? And so you have all the answers. And so everybody comes to you for the solution. That's the last thing you want. You actually want, there's a saying called, problem belong you, right? Which is, it's your problem. Like, problem belong me. Problem belong you. It's not my problem, right? It's your problem, but I'll help you overcome it. And vulnerability is the core to that, because if you're vulnerable, you have no ego.
Wow, this was a very deep conversation about leadership, about making change. Steve, Sandor, thanks very much for your time. I really enjoyed this, and please give us your details and we'll drop it all under the video.
Will do.
I loved connecting with you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sandor. Thanks. I really do appreciate the opportunity here and the support that you've given me at a personal level. So for those who are listening, if you don't know, obviously the Doctor of Self-Worth, I'm actually working with Andra on me. So, it's we're not broken. We're just trying to improve.
Well, thank you very much. Let's fly towards the outcomes that we want. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.